I very specifically remember having a mulakat with Khalifatul Masih Rabi, and this was very early in my career, around 1995, 1994. And my mother, who was a solar physicist, was describing her work on alternative energy. And Hazur kindly smiled my way as I was in the mulakat with my mother, and he said, "Why don't you work with your mother?" And I thought about that in Khilafat, when you have a meeting with Khalifatul Masih, regardless of your intentions coming into that meeting, you'll often find that there will be a course change in your life if you take the words of the Khalifa to also be a guiding milestone point in your development. I'm currently the CEO and founder of a new company that works on lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. And I'll tell you a little bit of a story around the name of the company, but before I do that, it's kind of remarkable to me that I had the opportunity to first found the company, but even just a year and a half after we've existed, we set a record of the first electric vehicle to travel over 750 miles on a single charge with battery technology that we've developed. During the last 6 months of my career at Ford, I had been asked to take one of the vehicles that I had developed with a lithium-ion battery, the first lithium-ion battery at Ford that was in a vehicle, and present it to Prince Charles. So I developed a plan to take the vehicle to the United Kingdom and have an event with media and so forth. I took the opportunity to plan in advance that I might have the opportunity to show this vehicle and describe the technology to Khalifatul Masih Khamis. And as I made that presentation, after about a 15-minute review of the core technologies, Hazur skillfully and wisely started to ask all of the right questions around the viability of a hydrogen future. And I could even sense at some point that my answers weren't sufficient enough to convince Hazur that we were onto something that would be meaningful. And Hazur looked at me at the end and said that it seems that you're working on technology for the elite. Why don't you work on something for the masses? And after so many events I'd had with leaders from different parts of the world, this was the first time that I had presented this achievement of technology and had been given the straight advice that maybe it wouldn't be the right long-term future. And it was within 6 months of that mulakat that my situation and the destiny, if you will, of that team that I led at Ford would take a dramatic change, a dramatic turn. And I arrived at, this was a mulakat happened in approximately October of 2007. And I arrived in a budget meeting in January of 2008. And the leader of the team at Ford said that we have a change in budgetary circumstances due to the financial crisis and collapse that happened around the US housing market, and that the company would be unable to support granting us any additional opportunity to keep going. And I received a call just literally minutes after this meeting by a founder of a battery company in the US that asked me to consider joining their company. And so I made a decision shortly after that to leave Ford and to move into a new development effort where I helped start a lithium-ion battery company in the US that needed that created US manufacturing jobs and technologies. But most important behind that decision to move forward, I realized that my Khalifa had just finished explaining that the merits of what I was working on did not seem to be aligned with service of humanity. Then I went through a period of a significant number of dreams and motivations that started making me think that I needed to change course. And one of my sajdas, I saw that I had been praying to Allah for guidance, and that if I should found a company, the company should glorify Allah. And the name that came to my mind in my sajda was One, that company would glorify Allah, and that I could name that company. Later on, I named it Our Next Energy, in such a way that we would then bring about the opportunity for a better energy storage technology for the future. I think every person has the opportunity to develop that living connection, but it requires an entire dependence on believing that there will be guidance. And it's sort of like doing istikhara. People tell you, and your elders tell you, that istikhara is a way to seek guidance. I use that all the time, which is that if I have a big decision to make, then I seek Allah's guidance, and then I wait and I look for the signs of which doors are going to open faster, and which ones that are constantly getting not valuable, I leave them. And I keep going in the direction where I feel like the guidance that I'm seeking is sort of unfolding in front of me faster. And it's just a simple belief that God does listen, and the living God is always there helping you with answering your prayers. My team didn't know at the time that I was hiring the team in Michigan the value or the special nature of this name. And so one day I walked in and there was this rug that they made with our One logo on it. And I thought, okay, wait a minute, this is not right, because I can't step on this rug. And so I stepped around it and I went in and I told the office manager that I haven't actually tried to explain this, but the name One, for me personally in my faith, is glorifying God. Therefore, I can't walk on, nor do I want anyone else to walk on that rug. And they all got together after work. They removed the rug. Then after work, they got together, they built an aluminum frame, and they hung it in the lab at the highest position on the wall to show me that they respected the oneness of God in my way, and that they respected my values. And while that didn't have to mean that they adopted my values, they showed me respect. And in the same way I show others my respect for their faiths, that we can coexist and that we can have respect for one another. But I thought that was a way in which we can bring our personal element forward and not in an overbearing way express who we are. Just 2 weeks ago, I had, by the grace of Allah, an opportunity to have a mulakat with Hazur to provide an update as to how the company is doing. And in that mulakat, Hazur said that as your intentions were good, may Allah bless your efforts. And that's actually the best you can ask for, is that you're rewarded according to your intentions. That means that we will be quite imperfect in executing a plan. You can count on that. If any leader is an Ahmadi that's successful thinks it's because their leadership skill is that good, it's probably an overestimation of what we as Ahmadis should take credit for. I think a lot comes from Allah covering our mistakes with the best outcomes that we probably couldn't have predicted and at the time didn't have the wisdom to fully put together, but we're granted so much opportunity as Ahmadis. And so that's the best prayer that I could ever hope for from a Khalifa, is to acknowledge that the intentions were good. Therefore, may Allah bless your efforts. I've actually found that if I don't do my Jamaat work, my secular work gets worse. That in fact, I think through Jamaat work, we're all granted so many more opportunities. I've made a rule in my life that if I'm elected to a position in Jamaat, I accept it, inshallah. If I'm asked to do something for the Jamaat, I just say yes and attempt my best to just do whatever is asked. Because really Jamaat requires leadership. And as much as we are secularly given skills, I think those skills are immediately applicable to the needs of the Jamaat, whether it's mentoring, whether it's giving back in time for an atfal or qadam or even a class, or doing anything that conveys your knowledge, it's not really your knowledge. It's more like a Jamaat asset. Every Ahmadi is basically an asset for the whole Jamaat. Just recently, I was elected to a local position in my new Jamaat because I moved back to Michigan, and I got a call from a leader asking, do I have time? And I said, my first answer is, no, I don't have time. The next answer is, absolutely, I'll do it because I have to make time. Yeah, I think I'm like deeply convinced that God listens to our prayers, and that if I seek guidance and I pray in earnest, that I'll be given some kind of direction. And I use that all the time.